Hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, Gita, a mantra for success. What is the Bhagavad Gita? Let's get it right first. Is it for religious Hindus only? Krishna devotees? Yogis? Is it advocating war? Or is it a war manual? And I also heard that it's only for older people.
Elderly people, why?
Yeah. I heard only when people get old, they're like, let's seek wisdom and maybe read the Bhagavad Gita.
I wonder why we don't seek wisdom when we are younger, though.
Then again, why should we seek? Not everyone is looking for answers because they don't have any questions, right? But you tell me, what do you think?
Let me share this I really like this quote. Life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% is of how we react to it.
Wow, very good. Nice.
So, Bhagavad Gita is that 90%. It's all about how we should react to the failures and adversities, how we should act responsibly, and not be defeated by the challenges of life.
Okay.
So, in many ways, Bhagavad Gita talks about mindful living, how we should live, what we should eat, how we should think. It has all those tips for healthy and happy lifestyle, I guess.
Okay.
Don't you think it's important to understand all these things when you're younger?
Again, I mean, each person, matures differently. They look for answers in different phases of life, right? So one person could be ready for it when they're 25, somebody at 65, and 7 will never be ready. I mean, there's no right or wrong. If they don't need it, then they don't need it, right? So Bhagavad Gita is for all ranges when you're ready. And it is available. It's there for you. The knowledge is there. You should read it when you're ready, and forcing somebody to read it is not going to help.
It might sound too mystical or, maybe it's very theistic in nature.
Yeah.
But the reality is, Gita is a handbook to a happier life. It's really talking about our true self, our life, and our relationship with the nature, with the universe, force, energy, or God, whatever you want to call it. And also, some people think it's about war, but that's all misconception. Yeah.
I also heard alcohol is the key to happier life. So we'll talk about that another day. But anyway, coming back to Bhagavad Gita, that's because you have to understand the context where Bhagavad Gita happened, right?
Yeah.
The war is about to start between the cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Arjuna, one of the greatest warriors of that time, is standing there and he's ready to defeat his enemies. And he's the most skilled archer of his time. And then he sees his relatives, especially his grandfather, his teachers on the other side, and he kind of panics and he's like, I don't want to fight.
Yeah, that's a bummer actually. That's what happened.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, you knew the war was coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they woke you up one day and said, hey, go to war.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And he knew he was going to fight, and he knew who he was going to fight with.
Yeah.
And now he's on the verge of the war on the battlefield. And he's like, I don't want to fight.
But you know what? People do doubt themselves at crucial moments. Arjuna was just a normal human being. He got very emotional seeing his relatives, especially his grandfather, as you said. Knowing it and seeing it are different. Until then it was all abstract. They were planning for war. They were getting ready, and here now, here he is standing with his weapons, and next thing that he has to do is to kill his relatives, kill his grandfather. I guess anyone would have doubts. I think it's normal. I feel so.
Maybe I just thought about Star Wars. So Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, tells Luke,
No,
he's like pretty sure that he's going to kill Luke if he doesn't join the dark side.
He tells that to the emperor.
Right, he says that, he also, when he sees Luke for the first time, he tells him, come over to the dark side. But he's also promised the emperor that he'll kill him. But when the time happened, he could not kill his own son.
And I'm happy you started this conversation.
Oh yes, let's talk about Star Wars.
Anakin Skywalker has always been an emotional guy since his earlier days, right? And he is always driven by emotions. And I think it's the same case with Arjuna. Arjuna is known for being very emotional, actually, in Mahabharata. But I think Arjuna was more like Luke Skywalker. Luke also knew he had to face his father.
Right, that is true. That is true. But he was very clear that he would not kill his father.
Who? Luke.
Luke. He was very clear about that, and he believed that there was still good in Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader now. But and he was willing to try to bring him to the good side, and he was okay if he even failed. But he said, I have to face him, and I can see good in him, and I will do my best to bring him back to the good side.
Yeah, you're right. But Arjuna did not have that choice.
Yeah, I mean, they tried everything to stop this war. I mean, they sent Krishna to have a truce. They talked to them multiple times, and the Kauravas did not agree. So in that case, Luke's situation and Arjuna's situation are different. And Arjuna pretty much had to fight. That's true.
Yeah, and I think that's why when Arjuna said, I don't want to fight to Krishna, that must be like, what the hell moment for Krishna.
Yeah, I would think are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You're like, dude, I just became your charter. I drove you all the way here. Couldn't you have called an Uber instead?
Uber.
So.
Yeah, he must have pissed. I'm like, are you kidding with me? But you know what? Like, Krishna was not an ordinary charioteer.
That is true.
He was known for his wisdom and his knowledge about warfare strategies. Were brilliant. And so, he must have realized that, at that point, Arjuna doubting himself, especially at that crucial moment of war, is not good news. It's not good news for Pandavas.
That makes sense. So when, Arjuna had his doubts, it kind of at this point, it becomes his responsibility as a friend, an advisor, a war strategist to, convince him to get up and go and fight.
Yeah.
So when he knows if he doesn't persuade him to, fight with all his heart, they are going to lose.
Yeah.
So at this point, it was like, my only goal is to convince Arjuna to, decide and make him fight and tell him, hey, this is your duty to get up and face your fears.
Yeah, and that's what Krishna did. And that is Bhagavad Gita. That's Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, so try and see if you can explain this. So why is Gita so crucial in the Hindu tradition? And it has become pretty popular in the, let's say, last decade or something. So what's going on?
Answers might differ. So,
Okay.
I think Hinduism doesn't have a central scripture, right? It doesn't have any central scripture. I think we have thousands of these religious texts. We don't know everything, do you?
Oh, no, of course not.
Yeah. I think what's happening in modern times, because of growing interest from the West, we have started calling Bhagavad Gita as our main religious text because, when you meet our Muslim friends, they have their Quran and our Christian friends have Bible. And when they ask us like, okay, what do you have? We just say, oh, we have Bhagavad Gita.
Makes sense.
That has been my experience at least. Plus, Mahabharata was so popular as we were growing up.
That is true. And you don't want to say we have 45 different scriptures because then it becomes, nobody wants to hear that. So it makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, Mahabharata was very popular as we were growing up. That brings us to an interesting question. Do people need to read the Mahabharata to understand Gita? Should they know better? At least know the summary of it?
Yeah, not necessarily they need to understand, but if they know the story of Mahabharata, it definitely enhances the understanding of Gita as well.
Makes sense.
Gita has around 700 verses compared to almost, I think Mahabharata had almost 100,000 verses. It's that big.
Yep.
What is interesting to me, and I learned this from the professor from when I was taking this course at Oxford Hindu Studies. The professor said that the central theme in Mahabharata is the nature of dharma, or to one's duties.
Okay.
And if you think about it, every character in Mahabharata is seeing their responsibilities from their perspectives.
Right.
And they are very concerned if they are executing their dharmas within their lives. Everybody.
Okay.
There are no right or wrong answers, but if you know Mahabharata, every character, either it's a male or female, everybody, they contemplate a lot and they put their views to win the argument. Everyone has an agenda. And there is no black or white in Mahabharata. Everyone has that grey side. Don't you think so?
Yeah. Definitely the grey side. There's no black and white.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, in many ways, Mahabharata is a debate rather than a unilateral discourse. It's not a kind of a one-side story. It's really a debate. So that way, and I learned this from the professor, the theme of Arjuna debating about his dharma in the Bhagavad Gita, it actually aligns with the overall theme of Mahabharata. So that way, even if you don't know the whole story of Mahabharata, only reading Gita as an independent book, that's fine. I think the author used Arjuna's character as an illustrative of all humans that are confused, skeptic, conflicted, and they're seeking for some answers. And I think the author just wrote these verses to guide such humans.
Right. So when Vyas wrote the Mahabharata, there are conflicting things. As when was it written? Do we know for sure when it was written?
No, we don't. I don't think we know about it. I took some academic course on Bhagavad Gita, and even those scholars or academic, they were not very sure about when it was written. Some suggest that it was written at some point between 400 BC to 200 BC, but it's still very unclear. And some even argue that even those 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, if they were added later in Mahabharata.
Okay, wow, okay.
We do not know. The author definitely took references from older Vedic texts, particularly Upanishads. But I think somehow he knew the limitations of some of these ancient texts. So he decided to introduce a new concept of bhakti or devotion at the later chapter of Gita.
What does that mean, and why do you... Yeah, go on. What does it mean?
The initial chapters are influenced by the Vedic text, right? Particularly Upanishads. So Krishna takes references from these Vedic ideas. Vedic ideas is all about knowledge. It promotes that knowledge itself is the path for liberation. And the teachings of Krishnas are very philosophical in nature. They're very intellectual, very mystical, very withdrawn and detached. He encourages us to suppress emotions and seek the absolute truth. He talks a lot about Atma, soul, self. It's very influenced by some of those Buddhist teachings. What's interesting is, and I found it very interesting, as Krishna is explaining the philosophy of yoga, suddenly Arjuna comments, I cannot be a yogi. I cannot be, one of those going to the jungle and,
ascetic to seek liberation. So, okay.
Yeah, I cannot be like that. So he just says show me an easier path. This is when Krishna, probably he thought okay, this guy is not going to understand me, whatever I say. So he just decides to introduce the concept of devotion. He takes a drastic turn somewhere in that, and he starts talking about divine love, emotions, relationships, all these ideas that are not mentioned in Upanishads.
Okay.
Yeah. He no longer speaks about the soul after that. Instead, he calls himself the Supreme God, who is the absolute controller of the universe, and he talks about devotion, praying, and seeking divine grace. So that's what it has a religious angle. It gets a religious angle there, and I think that idea is more popular amongst Hindus today.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why, but that is true.
Yeah.
So basically, Krishna says, now, if you don't want to go to the jungle, renounce yourself, that's fine. Just stay in the world, devote yourself to me, which is Krishna, just pray and I'll help you. That's an easy way out for people, I think, who are kind of lazy.
I don't know, I wouldn't say that, but pretty much something like that. But you know what? Gita is not really about either going to jungle or being Krishna's devotee.
Okay.
There's definitely a lot, the major part of Gita is there's a middle part.
That's true, that is true.
Gita is about life because Krishna keeps talking about actions, duties, mental consciousness, wisdom, intention, and human emotions. And they're all relevant to our lives. Yeah, he promotes the path of knowledge, which fundamentally it says that we are responsible for our own happiness, for our actions.
Right.
And we need to focus on finding our own self or inner self. That's what he actually promotes. But it's only when Arjuna asks Krishna to show him an easier path, he kind of I think that's when he decided to tell Arjuna that, okay, you know what, I'm God and just listen to me.
Okay, I guess he did not care. His goal right now was to convince him to fight the war. And as I was thinking about it, I came across an interesting analogy in the movie Avatar. So Jake Sully, when he is with the Na'vi and they bomb their house, the big tree, and he's pretty much he loses trust and he's just discarded by the Na'vi people, and they all move to the Tree of Souls. So he figures out, okay, I have to win their trust. What can I do? So he remembers their old story and he gets up and he figures out and he jumps on Taruk Makto, which is the biggest, baddest cat in the sky. And based on that tradition, whoever rides it is like the person who's the clan leader. And he brings all the clans together. Their forefathers did that. So he jumps and he gets Taruk Makto. So when he flies in to the Tree of Souls on Taruk Makto, everybody has, just agrees. And they look at him as a divine avatar.
A divine presence.
And the movie's name is Avatar. So I guess that's the logic.
That's an interesting analogy. I like it. Very true. Because sometimes people need to see something larger than life, I guess. And that analogy makes sense to me.
I guess sometimes you need Marvel stories and Star Wars and Avatar to make sense, I guess. So anyway, let's take a moment to talk about Krishna.
Okay.
Was he a god, a yoga teacher, a leader, a strategist, a wise man, a philosopher? Who was he? What do you think, Deepu?
I think the mystic aspect of Krishna dominates the Bhagavad Gita, right? He refers to himself as God, and he reveals that he is the avatar of Lord Vishnu. That way he is God. But I personally think when the epic poem of Mahabharata was written, Krishna was just a princely ally of Pandavas. I do not believe the authors of Mahabharata wanted to portray him as God, in the beginning at least.
Okay, so what do you think?
I think he was a wise person, probably a charming character. He was articulate, he was very smart, possibly very creative, and he was a good friend of Arjuna.
Okay, I agree with some of the parts. He was a wise man and a good friend. Okay, go on, I'll let you finish.
And I think over the years, the author of the Bhagavad Gita decided to turn him into God. The author says Vyas, in my opinion, he was a great storyteller. He was not interested in Krishna as a human character, so he decided to turn his attention to the mystery of Krishna's divine nature.
So he created Krishna as a god. But why was that needed? Why was a god needed? Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to follow the teachings of God. We are humans, and I really think the author Vyas knew that he would be able to make people understand the teachings or the instructions of these ancient philosophies if he created Krishna as God. But you know what? I'm very fascinated with this author, though.
You mean Vyas, right?
Yeah, yes, because he's more interesting to me. He had an excellent knowledge of ancient wisdom. He had read Samkhya philosophy, all Vedic text, Upanishads. I have tried to read them as well, and they're very difficult to understand. So now when I read the Bhagavad Gita, I notice that it is significantly influenced by these ancient philosophies. But Gita is much easier to understand because those words are coming from this very fascinating godlike character, Krishna. And it's easy to follow his instructions because of his larger than life personality. You're not comfortable with this?
No, I'm not. Why do we even need to think of Krishna as a god to understand the Bhagavad Gita? Does it even matter? Is there any significance to it? That's what I feel.
What do you think of Krishna?
To me,
Yeah.
I would think he's a friend, a leader, maybe a strategist, an advisor, an ordinary person. I mean, maybe a little better than ordinary. He could be a person with experience, That's pretty much it.
So you do not even want to see the Bhagavad Gita from a theistical point of view.
Oh hell no. If you tell me Krishna is your inner conscious talking, okay, I can think about that. That kind of makes sense. You can tell me he's your friend talking, that makes sense. That's what I said. But if you tell me Krishna is God, he is divine, he is the reincarnation of Vishnu, I'm like, okay, talk to the hand. I'm out of here. So that's my stance. And I basically say, okay, is there God? Is there not a God? You can't prove there's a God and you can't prove there's no God. So I say, leave him out of it. It's not necessary. I'm not saying there is a God. I'm not saying there is not. It doesn't make a difference is what I'm trying to say. Do you think Krishna is God, Deep?
I see him as some force or energy that motivates me to do a lot of things. He guides me. I do not think things just happen randomly. There is some mystic force that guides me or motivates me or challenges me. So if I am a Jedi, he is definitely the force. You can call it the universe, the force, energy, supreme being or God. But he is something for me. So does that make me believe that he is God?
Looks like you do. Why do you even need his energy or power or this force to do what you need to do? For me, it just comes. I think it's basic common sense or it's within you. And there's technically, you don't need an external person to motivate you. Can't you motivate yourself and have like self-discipline?
And that's an interesting concept as well. Some people need that kind of external force. Some people don't need.
Makes
So
sense.
that's where you and I differ in our perspective.
Okay.
Okay. How do you see it when Krishna starts talking about himself in the Bhagavad Gita? Because he positions himself as God.
So as I mentioned before, generally I consider Krishna as a friend, advisor, strategist. In these parts, then Krishna becomes your inner self or your inner conscious. And then, so there's no God. So I am God, God is me. That's the logic. So technically you are responsible for your actions. And if you have the willpower and do stuff, then it's you. It's very easy to always have an external factor. So if something goes wrong, you have somebody to blame. That's why usually people have an external. But that's again my opinion. Doesn't make it right or wrong. That's what it is, I feel. But
Yeah. You know what? The good news for you is you do not need to believe Krishna as God to understand the verses of the Bhagavad Gita.
Agreed. And that's the thing. I mean, it is not all about God. I know, like you said, maybe it was added later, but it is influenced by the ancient philosophies. The Bhagavad Gita is not about God, and that's not what our podcast is going to be. It's about many aspects, about leadership, how to live your life, about happiness. What we say might make some people uncomfortable, but again, this is our opinion. This is not meant to hurt anybody. Our goal is to focus on mindful living, mental well-being, and how you can use the teachings of Bhagavad Gita in a practical way in everyday life. That's pretty much what we are trying to portray in this podcast. So in conclusion, this is the approach we're going to take to the Bhagavad Gita and all the 18 chapters. We'll break it down into smaller pieces. We want to start with the introduction and our individual perspectives, and that's what we did today in this podcast. So keep watching this space for more podcasts and check out our website onestoryavenue.com. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.